It is no exaggeration to say that the massive success of Yokai Watch in Japan caused the rest of boys' anime to take notice. The series, about a special device that lets a kid communicate with and summon spirits, made a huge splash thanks pretty much entirely to its anime, which coincided with the release of its sequel game, Yokai Watch 2. The sales of Yokai Watch 2 rivaled or exceeded even the likes of Pokemon in its native Japan, the 3 versions of Yokai Watch 2 selling over 6 million units in Japan alone, and it caused the industry to blink. It had a huge effect on 2 series in particular, the monster genre giants Pokemon and Digimon. One of these I think handled this well, the other one not so much. So on today's episode of a new series I call Versus, let's take a look at Pokemon vs. Digimon. Or perhaps more accurately, Pokemon Sun and Moon vs. Appmon. Sorry for the clickbaity title. Pokemon is a series that requires no introduction. A staple of portable gaming and the monster genre, Pokemon, short for pocket monsters since they go into a ball that you can tuck into your pocket, sees players exploring a world where they befriend creatures that get stronger by leveling up and evolving. The 20-year-old franchise has video games, a card game, and of course a long-running anime featuring never-aging protagonist Ash Ketchum and his partner Pikachu, who more or less play out the stories of the video games with a cast of friends and partners that regularly rotate in and out as Ash moves from region to region. On the other hand, Digimon, short for Digital Monsters, is a series that's about as old as Pokemon, where kids befriend monsters that come from the digital world, an alternate reality that came about due to the existence of the internet. In this case, the transformations of the partner characters are temporary, and their situation is much more desperate in a save-the-world sort of way. I admit I have a soft spot for Digimon. It's always been a plucky foil for Pokemon that explores different themes. Unlike self-insert blank slate Ash Ketchum, the characters in Digimon have strong personalities, get older, and are affected and changed by their experiences. If Pokemon feels a bit samey to you, it's a good chance that Digimon is up to something different. Which brings us to our third contender, Yokai Watch. Up until now, monster shows, including Pokemon and Digimon, were pretty standardized where monsters battle each other and grow stronger. Literally every single show in the genre was like this. So in comes Yokai Watch with a monster show that was, gasp, not all about battling. Indeed, rather than a battle show, Yokai Watch is, about 90% of the time, a situational comedy where our main characters Nate and Inaho encounter mischievous spirits around their neighborhood who are dealt with not by violence, but by calling on whatever spirit cancels them out, usually after some hilarious antics ensue. If they manage to befriend these spirits, they receive a special medal that allows them to call on said spirit at any time by putting it into the watch. This series created a surge in what I call neighborhood investigation series, a series where kids would go around and investigate strange paranormal activity happening in their hometown. Now, while the games themselves do have a combat system and are a lot more battle-centric, there are still plenty of situations in them that are solved with non-violent solutions. Now, I'm not going to deny the effect of Level 5's direct aim at Japanese pop culture and how that helped it over the usually mass-appealed monster shows which were designed to be worldwide brands, but considering how many of its monsters rely on really painful puns to work, the sense of humor was definitely its leading edge. And so here we have a show that avoids violence and embraces humor, turning the genre upside down, so naturally both Pokemon and Digimon had to respond or risk getting left behind. Digimon's solution was Appla Monsters, or Appmon for short. When creating the series, Bandai Namco lifted a lot of elements from the Yokai Watch playbook. The Digimon in this series are instead based on smartphone apps, such as search engines, GPS apps, games, and even piracy. However, some of these Appmon have started going wild and are causing trouble by fouling up the systems of a tech-dependent society. In this series, our main character, Haru, gets an Appla Drive, a device that lets him summon certain Appmon by inserting a special token into it based on the Appmon he befriends. Yeah, I feel like I've heard this before. There's also a game on the Nintendo 3DS that has a lot of familiar Yokai Watch trappings, including summoning monsters using the tokens in your room and exploring your neighborhood to solve problems. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't think Appmon is a bad series, I just think it's an average one that's a painfully obvious copy. I mean, the idea of Yokai Watch as a traditional battle show actually sounds like an interesting idea, but it doesn't feel like it has the same edge compared to previous Digimon franchises which have ideas of morality and sacrifice, or pointing out that maybe we shouldn't be giving powerful death machines to children. Yokai Watch should have been a battle show seems uncharacteristically shallow for the series. Instead, they've made a sort of Yokai Watch that has been weakened by battle tradition and mass appeal, the very things that Yokai Watch avoided. Pokemon, on the other hand, took a different sort of approach. When developing Pokemon Sun and Moon, Nintendo took a hard look at how the series had behaved up until now, one that was very self-aware of what their series had become. As a result, the 7th generation of games, Pokemon Sun and Moon, feel very different from previous generations, both in the games and in the show. The games left behind a lot of franchise traditions, replacing hidden machines, which give your Pokemon powers that let them interact with the environment, with rental Pokemon that essentially do the same thing. Pokemon gyms, where trainers compete for a badge to indicate their progress, were replaced with island trials, which had a different sort of challenge topped off not by a powerful trainer, but by a strong Pokemon that could summon allies in battle. You can go surfing, take selfies, and literally fish up all the money you need, and you don't have to stop an evil team from taking over the world. It's a very laid-back experience compared to previous generations, as though the franchise was taking a much-deserved Hawaiian vacation. The anime as well adopted this more laid-back attitude. Rather than going on a long journey, Ash is instead at a school hanging out with his classmates, with the adventuring being left up to the school going on field trips. The show has a huge cast compared to previous seasons, and the animation style is a lot looser, allowing the characters to make wilder and more entertaining expressions and permitting more exaggerated movements more like what you would expect from a Studio Trigger production. The results speak for themselves. The new mechanics have been generally praised, a lot of the new Pokemon have wound up becoming fan favorites, and I think the show is incredible and a much needed change from how it had been for nearly 20 years. Atmon, on the other hand, hasn't even gotten an announcement of localization despite having come out in 2016. Now, I know it might be because a lot of companies have been second-guessing their brands in the face of Yokai Watch failing to break out of Japan, but other recent Digimon endeavors such as Digimon Tri and Cyber Sleuth did well in America, so it surprises me a little that an effort hasn't been made to localize it while the 3DS is still viable. Or not. Like I said in my previous Atmon video, it's not really anything special compared to literally all of the other monster shows that are out there. So now let's get into the main point, how each series reacted to Yokai Watch. When faced with the show, Digimon copied what I call surface elements. Oh, it's gotta have these toys and this narrative setup. It's the sort of thing you see in the worst kind of imitation, where they scrape things off the top of what they are imitating without really understanding what made it work. Pokemon, on the other hand, reacted by taking a good, hard look at themselves in the mirror and realizing, you know what, we have gotten kinda stale, haven't we? As a result, they loosened up, making something more laid back and fun while leaving a few traditions, including some notoriously frustrating ones, behind as they moved forward with Sun and Moon, finding success as a result. So, to sum up, what's the difference between Pokemon and Digimon? The difference is that while Digimon saw Yokai Watch as a template, Pokemon saw it as constructive criticism. Hey, thanks for watching. If you like this episode, please subscribe and ring the bell to join my notification squad, and if you really like this episode, consider supporting me on Patreon. They got to see this episode 3 days early. So with that, thanks again, and this is Kodak signing off.